In a quiet convent hallway, Sister Mary kneels before an image of the Virgin Mary, whispering a long and desperate prayer as a trembling candle flickers beside her. After several minutes of pleading, she slowly removes her veil and gently lifts the framed painting from the wall, revealing faint hand-scratched markings she had once hidden there. Her hands shake as she grabs the small bag she secretly packed earlier. Moving silently through the cloister, Mary slips into the Mother Superior's bedroom and quietly searches the nightstand until her fingers close around a ring of keys. Without wasting a second, she hurries toward the front gate, her breath shallow and frantic. At the main entrance, she fumbles through the key ring, trying them one by one. Before she can finish, for stern-faced nuns appear at the end of the walkway, walking toward her with unnerving calm. Panic spreads across Mary's face. Finally, one key turns and the lock clicks open. But the heavy chain around the doors is wedged tightly. She pushes the gate and manages to create only the narrowest gap. Driven by desperation, Mary forces her body sideways, scraping her skin as she squeezes through. Just as her foot reaches the other side, a nun's hand clamps around her ankle and yanks her backwards. Mary's scream echoes as a nun pushes her leg against the iron bars, bending it horribly until Mary collapses from the pain. The whirl fades, and she sinks into unconsciousness. When Mary wakes again, everything is pitch black. She strikes a match with trembling fingers and realizes she is lying inside a wooden coffin. Dirt presses against the sides. She begins pounding, sobbing, and begging for help, but her voice is swallowed by silence. Meanwhile, American novice Cecilia stands inside an Italian customs office while soldiers rummage through her luggage. One guard comments that she doesn't have a return ticket and asks whether she knows any Italian. Another officer muses aloud that she is wasting her youth by entering religious life. Eventually, they hand her back her papers and dismiss her. Deacon Enzo arrives to pick her up. They drive for hours along the rural countryside until the ancient stone convent rises on a hill. The Mother Superior greets Cecilia in Italian, and when Cecilia fails to understand, Sister Isabel steps in to translate. Mother Superior orders Isabel to show Cecilia to her quarters. Isabel clearly doesn't want the task, but obeys. As they walk through the wide stone halls, Isabel explains that the convent was built in 1632 as a place for aging nuns. It sits on top of the sealed St. Stephen catacombs, which no one is allowed to enter. Passing several rooms filled with elderly sisters, Isabel casually points out one woman who, she claims, will likely pass away next week due to a tumor. Cecilia stiffens at how bluntly Isabel speaks about death, but Isabel shrugs, saying mortality is a daily reality here. An elderly nun with dementia, Francesca, wanders up and asks about her father. Isabel gently escorts her away, whispering to Cecilia that it's best to play along unless Francesca's confusion turns aggressive. Cecilia pauses when she hears a choir singing and notices a distant nun staring at her with unsettling intensity. Isabel pulls her along the corridor and gives her the daily schedule. When Cecilia earnestly says she is honored to serve, Isabel replies with a sweet but cutting, "That's adorable," warning her that life here is far harsher than she imagines. Later, as Cecilia sits in a bathroom stall, a cloud of smoke appears behind her. Sister Gwen has sneaked in to say hello. They chat, and Cecilia explains her hometown parish closed due to low attendance. She adds that she was personally recruited by Father Tedeschi, whom Gwen says has an uncanny gift for finding young women who are spiritually adrift. That evening, a special ceremony is held for the novices to take their vows. With candles in hand, the girls process through the dim hallway. Cecilia finally meets Father Tedeschi in person, and Cardinal Franco leads the ceremony. Tedeschi whispers translations to Cecilia whenever the cardinal addresses her. She accepts her rosary and hesitantly kisses Franco's ring. A small reception follows. Cecilia speaks with Tedeschi, who confides that he once loved science until God redirected him. In turn, Cecilia tells him about her childhood accident. When she was 12, she fell through the ice of a frozen river. Her heart stopped for nearly 7 minutes before paramedics revived her. She believes she was spared for a divine purpose and wants to learn what that purpose might be. While in the bathroom afterward, she hears faint sobbing. Following the sound into the chapel, Cecilia discovers a woman kneeling behind the altar. The woman wears a disturbing red mask. Startled, Cecilia backs away, but Mother Superior suddenly appears, calmly stating that the masked figure is simply a nun deep in prayer. Mother Superior takes out a small, ancient nail, explaining with reverence that it was extracted from one of Christ's toes. She places it in Cecilia's palms, continuing to speak about sacrifice until Cecilia grows faint and collapses to the floor. The next morning, Cecilia confesses to a silent priest in the booth, claiming she fainted only because she drank too much wine. But the priest never speaks. He just peers at her through the screen before disappearing entirely. Suddenly, two hands reach from the wall and yank her backward. Cecilia is thrown onto a bed in a dark room. 5 masked nuns appear, and a pair of unseen hands grip her head. One of the masked figures lifts a ceremonial dagger toward her, and Cecilia jolts awake in her own bed, gasping. At the doorway, she sees Francesca silently staring at her before vanishing. During morning instructions, Gwen whispers to Cecilia as Mother Superior lectures the group. Eventually, Isabel teaches the novices their duties: washing the elderly, laundering clothes, preparing meals, even slaughtering chickens for dinner. Cecilia and Gwen grow closer, often sharing small jokes despite the grim environment. One afternoon, Cecilia notices Isabel watching her intensely from across the courtyard. Isabel disappears before Cecilia can speak. That same night, Cecilia wakes to find Francesca cutting her hair. The confused woman calls Cecilia blessed and says everyone adores her. Cecilia guides her to bed, unaware Francesca whispers Saint Cecilia. While tucking her in, Cecilia notices strange cross-shaped scars on the bottom of Francesca's feet. The next morning, Cecilia tells Gwen that something about the convent feels wrong. Gwen replies that her last living situation was far worse. She grew up with a boy who constantly hit her. When she finally fought back, she was sent to a support group run by nuns, inspiring her to join religious life. Cecilia suddenly vomits and is sent to DR. Gallo, while waiting for test results, she hears a noise outside her window and glimpses a masked nun wandering the grounds. A crow slams into the window, startling her. Mother Superior arrives with Franco, Tedeschi, and Gallo. Franco angrily demands to know whether Cecilia has been with a man. She insists she is not. Gallo confirms she was medically examined upon arrival and was, in his words, intact. Mother Superior hides Cecilia's red file in a drawer before Cecilia is taken to the infirmary. Gallo performs an ultrasound. The image reveals a fetus. Cecilia is shocked. Franco proclaims conception must be divine, a miracle. Cecilia stares at the screen, horrified. Later, she asks Tedeschi why she was chosen. He tells her that perhaps this was a purpose behind her near-death experience as a child, quoting, "The meek shall inherit the earth." Cecilia is then dressed in ceremonial garments and brought to the chapel, where the nuns chant praises around her. 5 months pass. Cecilia wakes with morning sickness and coughs up blood. A tooth falls out. At breakfast, all the nuns stand when she enters, except Gwen. Cecilia receives special meals and is excused from work. Gwen mutters that they'll start calling her Mary. While Cecilia bathes, Isabel suddenly attacks her, trying to drown her. Cecilia bites Isabel's hand and escapes, only for Isabel to scream that it was supposed to be her. The nuns drag Isabel away. In the infirmary, Gallo confirms the baby is unharmed. Cecilia begs for a real hospital, explaining she's losing teeth. They refuse. Later, Cecilia spots masked nuns at a window. Suddenly, a body crashes into the garden below. It's Isabel, her face mutilated. During her funeral, Gwen whispers that something is deeply wrong here, and she doesn't trust what's inside Cecilia's belly. Gwen's outburst grows louder until Father Tedeschi and Enzo drag her from the chapel. Her shouts echo in the stone corridors long after she disappears. That night, Cecilia lies awake, shaken. A faint clinking sound draws her attention. One of the chains holding a painting has snapped, leaving it crooked. When she straightens it, she discovers the painting had been concealing a patch of wall where a Bible verse is carved in Italian. She retrieves her own Bible and finds a passage, a warning about false angels appearing as divine light. Disturbed, Cecilia searches for Gwen, but her bed is empty. Determined to uncover the truth, she sneaks into the office where her file was hidden. The drawer is locked, so she hunts through the room until she finds a knife. Carefully wedging the blade under the small metal latch, she forces the drawer open. Inside is her red-marked file, containing clippings from her childhood accident and a hidden DNA report. Before she can look further, Cecilia hears muffled screams. She follows the sound to a small wooden door. Through the keyhole, she sees Gwen strapped to a chair while masked nuns hold her down, performing a mutilating ritual meant to silence her forever. Cecilia recoils, choking back a cry. When she turns to flee, someone grabs her, but it's only Francesca. The elderly nun presses an amulet made of braided hair into Cecilia's hands. Cecilia begs Francesca to help her escape, but Francesca replies in perfect English, "You'll never leave this place." The next morning, shrill screams jolt everyone awake. Cecilia is found collapsed in her bed, her nightgown smeared with blood across her stomach. With Dr. Gallo away, Mother Superior demands she be taken to hospital. Tedeschi initially refuses. He fears public exposure. But Cecilia begs hysterically for her life, finally convincing him to take her. As Cecilia is rushed out, Mother Superior kneels in a room to pray. She notices a stray chicken feather near the bed. Looking underneath, she finds a dead chicken Cecilia used to fake the bleeding. Her expression goes cold. On the road, Enzo drives while Tedeschi receives a phone call, Mother Superior revealing Cecilia's deception. Tedeschi orders Enzo to stop the car. Cecilia sees a shift in their faces and bolts from the back seat. But the men catch her and drag her back to the convent. Mother Superior punishes her with a freezing shower. When Cecilia warns her that God will not forgive this cruelty, Mother Superior strikes her. Cecilia is strapped into a wheelchair and brought behind the altar, to the same shadowed room she had glimpsed before. Finally, Cecilia demands answers. Tedeschi retrieves a holy nail, speaking with fervor. He explains that remnants of blood and bone embedded in the nail held fragments of a sacred genetic code. Believing it belonged to Christ himself, they attempted to use it to create a new Messiah. Many attempts had failed. When Cecilia calls him delusional, Tedeschi wheels her into a dim room filled with jars, each containing malformed remnants of past experiments. He reveals he's been trying for her 20 years and believes Cecilia is the perfect vessel. He then takes her to his laboratory, filled with old scientific instruments and makeshift equipment. He describes how, as a scientist, his ideas were dismissed as dangerous until the church recognized the potential value in his research. Enzo holds Cecilia's feet steady as Tedeschi brands each soul a hot cross, declaring her chosen. Afterward, she is taken back to her room and left alone. She tries to stand, but the burns on her feet force her to crawl. She drags herself to the door, finds it locked, and collapses in exhausted sobs. Weeks pass. Cecilia is brought to confession, where she pleads with Cardinal Franco for answers about the child, about God's will, about the violent rituals surrounding her. Franco remains silent until Cecilia accidentally snaps a fingernail and notices a thick, sticky substance coating her skin. Only then does Franco speak. If this were against God's will, he would have stopped it. Days before her due date, Dr. Gallo performs another ultrasound and confirms the baby is active. When he leaves momentarily to look for medicine, he forgets to close the door. Cecilia sees her chance. She seizes a heavy crucifix, follows Gallo's return path, and quietly enters Mother Superior's office. With one swift strike, she knocks Mother Superior unconscious. In a daze, she hits her again until she no longer moves. But before she can flee, she feels a warm rush down her legs. Her water has broken. Panicked but determined, Cecilia stumbles toward the balcony. Franco appears unexpectedly, but before he can react, Cecilia wraps her rosary around his neck from behind and pulls. He claws at the beads, but eventually collapses. Dr. Gallo sees this and immediately flees. Cecilia snatches Franco's lighter and hurries into the chapel. Another contraction nearly brings her to her knees. Grabbing the holy nail, she limps her way to the lab. She splashes ethanol across the floors and equipment. Suddenly, Tedeschi arrives, horrified. Cecilia raises a lighter. Tedeschi tries to reason with her, claiming that even if she dies, they will simply use another girl. Another contraction hits, giving him the chance to grab her arm. Cecilia smashes a glass bottle across his head and escapes, locking the door behind her. Tedeschi reaches through a small window in the door, grabbing Cecilia's hair. Desperate, she twists his fingers until one snaps. The spilled ethanol pools near the door. Cecilia drops the lighter. Flames erupt instantly. Smoke chokes the room. Cecilia watches the fire consume the lab, until a loud crash signals that Tedeschi has extinguished the worst of the blaze. The pounding on the door resumes. Cecilia forces herself toward the stairs leading down into the forbidden catacombs. She grabs a flashlight left near the entrance and descends into the darkness. Hallways wind endlessly. She turns off the flashlight when she hears Tedeschi walking nearby, his breathing echoing off the stone walls. When he finally passes, she turns the light back on, only to discover Gwen's lifeless, brutalized body lying in a corner. Cecilia covers her mouth to stifle a scream. She keeps moving until she discovers a small crack in the wall, leading outside. She wedges herself into the opening. Before she can climb through, Tedeschi grabs her from behind and drags her back. He pins her to the ground, whispering prayers as he pulls out a scalpel. He cuts into her abdomen, intent on extracting the child himself. Through the agony, Cecilia gropes for the holy nail and drives it into his throat. Tedeschi collapses. Cecilia pushes him off and crawls toward the opening again, finally emerging into the open air as dawn breaks. Exhausted, bleeding, and trembling, she collapses onto the grass. Moments later, she screams, her body forcing the birth to begin. In the struggle, she cuts the cord herself, shaking and delirious. The newborn makes a strange, animalistic sound. Cecilia stares at the child in terror, her trauma overwhelming her. She picks up a stone, trembling violently, the implication chilling and symbolic as the scene fades.